Witness history at the closing ceremonies of the World Games with an all-star celebration featuring Alabama's favorite son, Lionel Richie, performing at home for the first time in decades. Joined by Alabama, Jamie Johnson, Bo Bice, Taylor Hicks, Blind Voice of Alabama, Pastor Mike Jr., Ruben Studdard, Young Blue, Martha Reeves, and Worth the Wait. An epic celebration. The closing ceremonies of the World Games at Protective Stadium, July 17th. Tickets are limited and going fast. Get yours now at TWT2022.com.
As far as some prepared remarks, and then we can get into any questions you may have as it relates to the proposed 2023 budget that I've just presented to the Birmingham City Council this morning. As I shared with the council, the city of Birmingham is experiencing an unprecedented time of investment and growth, which is really good for our city and community. Business taxes are up, which will enable us to expand our investments and our shared priorities. And when I say shared, I'm talking about not just the mayor's office, but council. Not just council, but the community as a whole. Now, as I've stated, when you boil down a mayor and council's responsibility with tax dollars, it really boils down to two things: public safety and public infrastructure. And in this new budget, we have significant investments in both. With that infrastructure piece, you know, the terms I've been using for 4+ years now is neighborhood revitalization. There are millions of dollars in neighborhood revitalization, which includes blight removal, demolition, weed abatement, as well as street paving, sidewalks, and things of that nature. Around public safety, we also have some things, well, I'll actually touch on that in a minute, related to our youth. And then there's public safety. Of course, we've seen significant increases in investments in our fire department, public works, as well as of all departments, the police department. And then our youth involvement and our youth investment, our reentry efforts, our conflict resolution efforts, and educational efforts for our youth. That's the thing I'm most excited about to share with you. One, we continue with the Birmingham promise of $2 million towards apprenticeships, internships, and jobs for our young people to be in a position to make $15 an hour for working. In addition to that, we continue our mental health discussions and investments with $1 million towards the school system that will allow a mental health professional in every school. That's all 43 schools. That's for K through 12. This year, we'll also be supporting a robust financial literacy program for our K through 12 children at $1 million. You add on, separate from the $3 million that we've already approved from ARPA funds to support conflict resolution, we're going to add an additional $1 million for conflict resolution for our K through 12 children. Then for birth to 5, we are doing $1 million, additional $1 million towards early childhood development. We want to do everything we can to support the foundational years before our children enter our school system. And then we're doing about $200,000 for reentry programs for our 14 through 17-year-olds who are in state custody down on 2nd Avenue connected to the family court. And then an additional couple $100,000 for the Kids and Jobs program. And then another $1 million for safe havens for certain rec centers across town for our children to be able to feel safe, whether it's after school, weekends, or summer school, or during the summertime, when children, we can extend the hours at our rec centers. So for children who don't feel safe at home or in the neighborhoods, have a safe place, whether it's curriculum, resources, or just for fun. And we're excited about that. Transportation, of course, we're making significant investments in public transportation. For the last several years, at least since I've been born, we've only had one tool in the toolbox, and that's max buses. But now we have the BRT with some additional funding, and we expanding VIA at about $1.2 million. When you tag on what we're doing for the BJCTA at $10 million, that's a little over $12 million for public transportation alone. All the boards and agencies will receive what they got last year, or some will receive more. So there are no decreases in what boards and agencies receive. Also, in addition to that, the things we have to do for our employees. We continue the conversation that we started about 60 days ago of the cost of living adjustment. That 5% kicked in last pay period. We now tag on top of that, starting July 1, an additional 5% merit increase. In addition to that, longevity pay. We saw for our pension at $32 million. And also we're supporting our increase in our separate pension for our police and fire employees at $2.7 million, which is separate from the $32 million. So the necessary investments in our employees, the necessary investments in our infrastructure, neighborhood revitalization, and the necessary investments in our youth and public safety. This budget supports all the things we want to do to improve the quality of life of the citizens in the city. With that, I'll open it up for any questions you may have.
I was going to say, Mayor, how good does this budget feel compared to the one you had to go through 2 years ago?
What's the song? It feels good. Yeah, I can't sing it, but it feels really good.
How far has the city's revenue come from those dark days in 2020?
So it comes. Let's see. Let's just pass it to me, Rick.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to make up any numbers. How about I just show them to you? So you see the FY 2021 budget prior to the coronavirus. Well, after the coronavirus. So that 478 was lower than this. Then the actual amended budget for 22 was 455. So you see a significant increase in our budget. Proposed budget of 517 million, which is right above $500 million. 66% of this $517 million budget will go towards personnel costs. That's salaries, wages, benefits, health care, etc. Pension, all of that above. When you add in for each department, so all departments and all city employees combined, $517 million, 88% of this goes towards our personnel departments. So we're putting heavy emphasis on investing in our employees so they in return can provide the necessary service to our citizens. And then, of course, within that is separate from that number I just gave, significant investments in infrastructure as well. I'll leave it right here.
Another question, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
You talked about the extra level of energy at the beginning of the meeting. Obviously, Dwayne Thomas, 17-year-old, was killed yesterday. We've learned, and you probably brought this up, that he attended Carver High School where you just spoke last week. How heartbreaking is that?
And there's a saying of sick and tired of being tired, right? I talked to Dwayne's mother this morning. So Dwayne's mother is Miss Costco. And I didn't have the words for her, right? There's a lot of parts of this job that are very, very hard. None is harder than making the call to a grieving mother who lost a child. That's worse when that child is still a child, right? I'm not talking about an adult. A 17-year-old, 2 weeks from graduation, set to walk across the stage June 3rd, cleared all of his graduation requirements, just had his prom, decked out, dressed nicely. 5 other siblings, 3 brothers, 2 sisters. I spoke to his grandfather this morning who lives in Arizona, and the pain and anger in his voice, the sadness in his mother's voice. None of it's right. It doesn't feel right. But something's wrong here. Since January 1 of this year. So we haven't cleared 5 months. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7. We've had 8 Birmingham City School high school students shot and killed. I just list off all these things we're going to do for our youth. It's not enough. And government is not enough. And I don't even know what happened yesterday. But I do know he is supposed to be walking with his classmates next week. His mother is supposed to see him walk across the stage. His mother is supposed to hug him when he turns his tassel and he walks out of that graduation ceremony. And he's supposed to be in a position to take pictures with his siblings and with his grandfather and with his mom. And they're supposed to be going to eat after that and celebrating. He's supposed to be figuring out the next steps of his life if he hadn't figured them out already about whether it's college or military or work. It's not right. And there's too many grieving mothers. There's too many families that have to deal with that. And you know what? I'm tired of standing before y'all having this conversation. But how I feel about it pales in comparison to the grief his mother is experiencing. Who else? Who has a question about the budget? Everybody's good? Yes, go ahead.
I guess. The youth aspects of the budget, you already touched on it, but just how important is that for you in relating to all the young deaths we've had so far this year?
So it's really important. I think crime and gun violence exists in Birmingham at a rate that's very similar to a lot of urban cores in our country. You got these American Rescue Plan dollars that the federal government and the President Biden has given. And he's made some public comments over the last 2 weeks about, listen, more money needs to go towards public safety. Public safety is not enforcement only, right? It's not, this budget doesn't just increase funding for police. This budget increases funding for prevention measures. This budget increases funding for reentry measures. We got $7.4 million just for youth education, prevention, programmatic things, not personnel costs, program. You know what I want? I want our children to learn what I didn't learn. I want them to learn what I wasn't taught. I wasn't necessarily taught at home. I wasn't taught at school how to budget, checking, savings, hell, investments. I would like to be in a position to put predatory cash checking places out of business in the hood. For the first time, we have a robust curriculum that involves investments in financial literacy for our K through 12 children, in partnership with the school system, in partnership with other organizations that will be named soon. It's a game changer. We have an opportunity to build a robust curriculum for conflict resolution that supports the idea that when a child gets mad because another child hit them, whether in school or out of school, they don't have the result of using their hands or worse, picking up a gun or another object and shooting them back or hitting them back. We got an opportunity to do that with this budget. We got the opportunity to fight against this third grade law that says children who are not at reading level by the third grade are automatically held behind, by investing in birth to 5 with more monies towards early childhood development. That's reflected in this budget. We got an opportunity to keep our children safer in the summertime by reimagining how we use our rec centers, and they can come to them and feel safe with programs and fun, etc. That's all reflected here because that's our job to do, to invest in the youngest and next generation. So all the conversation about policing, yeah, I'm with it. I understand it. Police reform, I'm with it. Police accountability, I'm with it. But stop expecting the police to do things that they're not responsible for. We got other measures to invest in our youth, and that's what we're doing as well. Who else? Thank y'all so much.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Rick.
Do you know what's happening in Birmingham? Find out now with the all-new What's Happening Birmingham app. Download today on Android, iPhone, and iPad for free. Get info on everything you need to know about local news, events, businesses, restaurants, and more. Visit our website, what'shappeningbirmingham.com, follow us on Twitter at HappeningBham, or call us at 205-538-4508. Download the What's Happening Birmingham app today. What's Happening Birmingham, your source for everything Birmingham.